Thank you, Reese. I suppose after that last session, I think I need to do a joke or a dance or something that's going to get us a little happier in the frame. For myself, I've got two presentations. One's around community work and working in community work, and the first one I'm going to bring to you is working together to enhance offender attendance in programs, and particularly I'm looking at a program that we've developed called Offender Short Message System. So I must say that I'm very honoured to be here. I've tried to find a way to get this program, the Offender Short Message System, into Paccoa for a number of years, and there's never really been a title that allowed us to get there, and I'm happy to be here. Okay, so as we continue with our business productivity and maximising our dollar and to meet those ever vital targets, we really need to work through and look at how we introduce innovation into our work. And this is really hard. Most of our work is paper-based. We're now moving towards electronic systems, particularly with offender information storage and operations. But where do we go from there? And we've all heard about mobilising our community, our resources, engaging our offenders, and working through the issues. So today I'm here to present on an effective communication tool that we've developed in Victoria and found increases to attendance that adds value to the programs and to obviously reducing our workload. And I heard this morning we were talking about the amount of workload that some of these programs and some of the things that we do with offenders creates. So any time that we can look at the opportunity to reduce workload, it's always going to be beneficial. So to give you a bit of background on me, I started in corrections back in 2004. Very like Mayumi, I was given a caseload, thrown into a desk, and I was lucky enough that I had two people to get information from, one of them being Linda Moore, sitting just there. And she was very, very helpful in getting me started, and particularly around those areas around case managing offenders. And for me, I was there for a little bit, and we sort of came across the community work area as a problem. And for me, the problem was we used to work off an old system for non-attendance for community work. So not only was I responsible for creating contracts for 200 plus offenders across 2 different locations, 25 staff, we also had my own caseload. So at the end of each day, we would go through and work out all the non-attendance, and we would print out all the non-attendance pieces of paper, which was, would equal trees each day. And essentially from that, I would divvy up every case manager's pieces of paper for non-attendance. My pile was this high. Everyone else's pile this high. So this meant that I had all the follow-up to do. I had to do all that case management, and it was just driving me nuts, because not only have I got to do the other 50% of non-attendance for all those contracts, and recontracting, uncontracting them, I've also got to do all my own ones, and mine were the community work only. So they're the highest non-attendance. Is that right? Is that still the way out there? Yep. And so that really annoyed me, and I complained a lot to my manager, who said, well, go find a solution. And essentially what we looked at was creating the offender short message system. So our aim with that is to increase our attendance, support the community work partners, particularly they're hard to find. If we don't have people attending the programs, then we're really in trouble. They're not easy to access, and it makes it very, very hard. The courts and parole completions are down, your breach rates go up, the issues around management and also the court's confidence is very damaging, and essentially it's just not a win situation to have such a high This is doing its own things. Where's my tech? No. So we started seeking that solution, and we came up with the Fender short message system. So the system has been identified as a powerful communication tool utilising a wide range of organisations, franchise networks and government bodies. Calls to mobile phones, 25 cents flayful, just at a minimum. The cost of each call from out of an office is around $3 per phone call. With mail now, you're looking at 70 cents per letter that goes out. So taking that, and for mail, you're looking at that communication to take 2 to 3 days at a best to get to the client. So it was identified that technology should be used and find a cost-effective tool at that. So we went through and we looked at all the different manufacturers out there who have a product, and as a result we came up with the OSMS. Without going through any more, so essentially the OSMS is utilised off a web-based program. We send out a message to an offender saying you're required to be at this appointment, whether it be case management, community work, COG skills, any of the appointments that we set up for offenders during their day. For us, we came out with a product that is essentially increased our community work area around 21%. For us, that works out to be about $2 million a year across CCS. So we developed the tool, and we in 2004, and then in 2007 we managed to roll out the bigger tool. Oop. That's definitely doing weird things. Sorry about this. Not even pressing the button. Okay. So in developing the tool, we tested it. And you can't achieve anything unless you're measuring it. And for us, we went through the tool. We created some ways to measure the tool in itself, using it in case management, using it in community work, and using it with community work only orders. So we're getting a different field, as well as also with a clinician sending out appointments to remind offenders for attendance. As I said before, we found a 23% difference in the attendance and 74% attendance with OSMS versus a 51% attendance without the reminder. So we did it with equal staff, the same case manager, the same amount of people on the test. One side with SMS, one side without SMS. What we didn't expect is what the number of offenders to actually respond to the messages saying, okay, thank you, or who is this, being the general gist of it. Our overall figures indicate that a 60% increase to community work for unsupervised orders, which meant that my pile of pink sheets went down considerably. I wasn't having to send out the communication that I required. I didn't have to recontract. Massive time saving in the community work team and for the case managers. A 41% increase to supervision with case managers, but one thing I really did learn out of that is that good case management, it doesn't matter about the SMS tool. Good case management will have good results, and that was really indicated quite early on. It can add to it, however, and we're probably doing about 2,000 messages for the year. As things in Victoria usually get on the grapevine, we found that there was a number of other locations starting to use the tool, and I moved into head office where it was decided by David Daly that we should really create a statewide platform for this, which meant that we needed to write some procedures and some direction for it, and we expanded the program. So for our test findings also included the cognitive skills program and changes that we had to do things like privacy impact statements, look at the policies in those directions, and also set up regular reviews of the text messaging to make sure that our messaging was appropriate. And in most cases, we only found 2 cases of personal use where people were sending messages directly from their email through the SMS porthole out to their hubbies saying, please pick up milk or something silly like that. With most of the messaging, it was pretty good. What we did find over time, however, was that the fact that the people started using the text messaging in text talk, and that wasn't really sort of fitting the model. If we're going to be a professional organisation, we need to have professional chatter. And that became a little out of hand, probably close to about 2,689 messages in 1 month dump of the program being statewide. We found that many messages were incorrectly text messaged. Not the end of the world, we can fix that. So we set upon actually putting templates in the system so that we could only do templates directly. It meant that all our chatter was conform, and all you were doing was inserting the date, inserting the name of a company or a partner for community work, or the organisation like VACRO or so on, and adding your details as far as a staff member. That was probably one of the other main concerns, was people were putting out their last names or their phone numbers attached to the messages, which we didn't really want. We just wanted a generic number so people could call up the same way they do off letters, the same way they do when we leave messages for them. I suppose one of the other background information things that we found out was that 80% of offenders came out of prison with a mobile phone. About 85% of our offender base already have mobile phones. So it makes it a very attractive. It's instantaneous. The message is there straight away, and it's directly going to the offender as opposed to going to an address where someone else may pick up that mail or pick up the home phone number. Now, it's definitely not there to replace it, and we were very cautious in the early years to make sure we weren't replacing it. But since then, we've had discussions to say, this is actually as sound as leaving a phone message or sending mail. So we continued with that, and we've upgraded the system. We've moved it off our Lotus-based email system and created a separate porthole or operating system for it, which Message Media, the company that we go through, have developed. We've removed the free text option except for administrators, and the free text option is there for basically as a global warning to anyone on our database. So, for example, if we're up in Mildura and the Mildura staff are facing a fire or a flood or something like that, they can send out a broad message to all our offender base to say, please don't come here. There's this going down. We need to make sure we're protecting ourselves. Contact us later on. We can also do that for staff in the sense of something going on, pandemics and so on and so forth. We also, I suppose, we were taken up to the executive director also by our privacy team, who weren't particularly happy about the number of messages that had gone out with unprofessional chatter, and also some other issues they believed were a real privacy issue. And to our great surprise, our executive director turned around and said, why can't we use this for managing offenders? So we had to go away and look at what we could do, but essentially we came away with a tool now that we can actually do some case management from. Things like your pending breach, please bring this documentation regarding blah, blah, blah. All things that can help with that next appointment, but not to take over that appointment. So our templates grew from something like 12 to 27 pretty quickly. And also we've improved our training. It's now part of our standard training package for staff, and one of the things I am happy to say is that unlike Miami and myself, we do now have a training package. So if anyone's wanting to come to Victoria, we do train you. And we also included this training as part of that package. Okay, so some of the templates: court attendance, emergency notice, do not attend, general contact, order completion, permission to travel notice, pending breach proceedings gets used fairly regularly, and there's also the supervision and reporting. From the other ones, we've got supervision, reporting appointment, failure to report and cancellation, and that's pretty much a standard through testing and community work as well. So we've got the please attend, you failed to attend, please contact us, and your appointment's been cancelled or so on. And generally the community work one gets used fairly heavily. When I did a bit of assessment before coming, I actually looked at messages and what was going out and what was being used, and over 70% now is pretty much being used for case management. So it's actually community work has come back whereas it used to be the strongest, and we're now doing something around 40,000 messages every year. That's about $7,000. So as far as an effective tool, yeah, it definitely ticks the box. Okay, so what does it look like? It's pretty snazzy, I think. Pretty basic. You put your username in and your password, and you connect in. As you can see, all our templates are up here, and you just select the template that you need to. It drops down, and you can put in the missing information. You can create a report against the messages that you've sent and received. For our staff, they print off any messages and add it to the offender file as a piece of evidence to say that they've made that communication. And then you've also got the customer service lines and details in there. From here, we can also add a new contact, we can address, and we can also upload. And we've got a broadcast message in the system there. From there, we also had a problem where one person was supposed to be selected, and because this tool can multi-select, so you could send out to a whole work team or a whole program, one message, and just by clicking the one button. Because we had that, unfortunately a message went out to a number of people on community work when it was actually only meant for one person. So from that, we've put in a couple of prompt buttons to make sure that that doesn't happen again, and that happened early on back in 2009, somewhere around there, and we haven't seen that issue again. So you select the person that you want to send it to, and away you go. You've got your message in here, the actual content, putting in the date, the location, the query name, and then who it's going to, and away you go. You can also track the message. So it means that once they've received it, you can get a notification back. That costs another 10 cents, and you've received that message. You can then add that to the file as evidence against, or not against, but add it to the offender file. You can also set up a time to send the messages later. Particularly for community work, this was really handy because we don't want to send out all Sundays messages for community work on Friday afternoon. The whole aim of sending out the message is to get them to put that beer down or not do what they're supposed to do before they go to community work. So for us, we really wanted that to go out at least 12 hours before, so that we were meeting our needs and getting them to community work. So that's a very simple system, and essentially the broadcast comes up saying you've sent the message, 3 messages been sent to one recipient. So it builds the message on one side. You might have a message that is bigger than the 160 characters, but it'll repack it on the other side for the mobile user. So they're not seeing 3 different messages come through, they're just one message. And it wasn't tracked. So for us, as far as the challenges that we face, with decreasing budgets and workload and so on, it ticks a really high number of boxes, and I think there was 7 out of the 10 boxes of the emerging trends that I got from our resource library, who said these were the 10 emerging trends. in challenges for corrections. I don't agree with all of them, but that's what he tells me they are. Okay. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the graffiti removal program and working with corrections. Just throw on the other one for us there, buddy. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. As far as setting up the templates for offender short message system, we were $25 a month, and that got you 250 messages. As far as the template development, I'm a pretty good salesman and say, you know, this is going to go like wildfire across our organisation, so do it for free, and it has been. They've pretty much, I think Queensland are now using it, I believe. New South Wales are starting. And also Tas. So, why am I even here? You guys already know how good it is. And one of the funny things, I suppose, is I go to training and talk to new staff about the program and say, who's using SMS? And they all say, yep, love it. So it is quite interesting that majority of staff really engage in this. And probably one of the first challenges I had was the staff believe that offenders should be, you know, responsible for their own actions. So why should we send them messages? And the answer to that is we send them other communication. Why would we not send them something that's instantaneous, that they're going to get right on the spot? If we want them to contact us, why send a letter? Why do anything else unless it's something that we can do instantaneous? We want them to contact us. They're more likely to go through their phones than they are to go through their mail. In fact, most mail for a lot of people is put aside for the moment because you know that there's bills in there. It's all depressing. Got another question?
Just a quick question. How do you go in regards to using it for breach proceedings in court as evidence? Because that's an issue we're having in South Australia. We've got a similar system but not as complex and as well set up that we use for community service. But I'm just wondering, when it comes to directing someone through SMS to attend an appointment, for instance, and they fail to attend, can they then not say, never got the message, or I've lost my phone, etc.? Yet can you include that in your breach proceedings?
Yeah, so for us, we haven't overly used it in the breach, and I probably have to ask my Victorian counterparts how they've managed that.
Alongside the existing communication tools, so we don't solely rely on SMS. So when case managers, for example, if I'm approving contravention proceedings, if they've relied solely on that to direct an offender to an appointment, I'll void the absence. So I take it out because there's no proof that they've actually received it. So it's proof that you sent it, but not that offender's received it.
Yeah, unless you're tracking the message. The other thing we did was we also changed the documentation to include mobile phones as the receiving information. So when an offender gets inducted, part of the agreement with them and the signature we receive is that they're going to receive SMSs, messaging. So it's an acceptance by them, and then like any other communication tool that we send a letter or we change that part of the policy to include SMSing. Then when we present that information, we've got the offender file to say we sent this message on this. We've also backed this up with a letter, and we haven't had any contact with you or whatever it is against that breach proceedings. But never rely on it solely. I heard Tasmania, Queensland, New South Wales. Anyone from WA? Not in Tassie.
Yeah.
Talked about in Tassie, okay.
Can I just talk about Tasmania? Because I did say that earlier. We use it in our drug court. We use it to send, it's exactly the same system. We use it to send out messages for the urinalysis testing scheme, so people are tested 2 or 3 times a week in the early phases. The courts accept as evidence that people haven't opened their messages, but we do track delivery. So what delivery means on this system is that the message has gone to the phone. It doesn't necessarily tell us that the person's opened the message, but the courts are happy to accept that that's effectively what it means, because we're really explicit when people come onto a drug court order that they have to have a mobile phone it has to be charged, they have to have credit, and they have a responsibility to check all their messages. So that they're definitely, the messages are tight evidence in terms of sanctions. No problems there at all. And we're now talking about moving them into the system, into the community service order scheme and the probation scheme as well. It's really fantastic. And while I've got the mic, thank you, Jason, because we have actually plagiarised from Victoria. Researched. And Jason's been really helpful and really generous in sharing information with Tasmania, particularly with the community service order scheme. And he's actually today set up an appointment to go and visit the staff in Hobart tomorrow when he's down there. So it's great to have that working relationship. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
I'm definitely a better project officer than I am as a presenter. The other thing, I'm really, really unwell today. But thank you very much for that. Any other questions at all? Fantastic. How are we going for time? Who's my time person? Okay. The graffiti removal program, where's Alex? The graffiti removal program is a program that I started up in 2004 with moving into head office, and it's talking about working together in the community, but it's largely talking about the graffiti removal program and how we've done that. Is anyone from community work here? Fantastic, good to see you. We're always the minor people in a group of corrections people, aren't we? But we're also the most influential and handsome and good looking as well. So the graffiti removal program, we started up as part of the lead up to the Commonwealth Games. Our Minister came and said, we really need someone to clean up the city and make sure it's presentable to everyone around the world who's going to see. And as part of that, they gave us $124,000 to start up a 3-month program. And for me, I was really keen on doing that. I'd moved to Melbourne only several years beforehand from WA, and I could see the difference between WA and Melbourne as far as the aesthetic look. Melbourne's cold, it's dark, it's dreary, it's got great shopping, and it's got great sports, and it's got all these other great things, but it's dirty looking. And for me, I didn't really like that. The fact that our government was then turning around and saying, well, we have to do something, showed that they had the drive there. But is it a short-term project? Is it 3 months? You know, really, we could spend years here and removing graffiti and still not scratch the surface. So we put the program together, and away we went, and we started removing graffiti. And the Minister for Corrections was very, very happy. You got something that was seen by the community. The community were also focused on graffiti as a problem. In the Australian Bureau of Statistics, it came up as the 3rd largest issue in Victoria, whereas in other states it came up as the 4th. So overall, Australia-wide, it was the 4th largest issue. So I'd say that's probably New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria driving that. So we kicked off a program, and we ran out of Carlton office, primarily focusing on the fine default office there, who was responsible for delivery of all their community work around the state from one central office. And since then we've regionalised and it's separated all of that, but it actually became quite a problem for the Carlton office because they're having to work with other locations and share their community work. And the other locations have already got plenty of offenders to put on their programs. So by developing a standalone program for the Carlton office really took off some of the pressure. So the next thing for us to look at, besides the planning of assessment and tools and equipment and how we're going to do it, is also look at who we're going to partner with, because we need to work for somebody. We can't just go into the community and remove graffiti willy-nilly. There's a lot of street art in Victoria, and we would be chased down by those who love the graffiti or street art in Victoria if we remove something that wasn't supposed to be removed, as Melbourne City Council found out when they removed a Banksy stencil only about 12 months ago. So we sought about some partners, and funny enough, no one really wanted to partner a graffiti program with corrections, because in most of the council's views, they don't have offenders in their community. Their community is 100% dedicated to a law-abiding lifestyle. And it took a little bit of work, but we eventually got in with one council, and then we started looking at how we could really promote to other councils. And we came across a couple of working groups that were councils networked together, and we started to build on that. So we attended those meetings, and we would provide them updates on how much graffiti we were removing and how many square metres and how much rubbish and what we were doing, and along with the minister doing some promotional marketing via what we'd achieved during that 3 months. We started to get a reputation. Problem was, it was called Jason MacLeod's graffiti program, and I'm not really the face that I want to be across every program, so we needed to create a brand for it, and we came up with some logos like this. This also gets used on community projects along with Crime Prevention Victoria. So it's not just isolating us. Anytime they see this out there with a trailer and a white trailer and a white bus, generally it's going to be one of my work teams. But for the other ones out there, they've got the same logos, and they can't, differentiate, except for the fact that councils have seen how good we are. They've stopped bothering with community programs because we're actually so effective in doing what we're doing. Okay, so partnership building is really is coming along as far as that side of it. So we needed some more dollars. We went back to government and said, can we please have some more money? And they said, sure, no problem, you guys are doing great. We'll give you some money, but you've got to expand to 9 locations, and we want you to operate 24 days a week. So that was a fairly big expansion to start operating that largely across the state. It meant a lot of partners coming on board very, very quickly, a lot of equipment, a lot of training to be set up. It also means that we have to set up, legislative, keeping ourselves protected from legislative requirements. Environmental, operationally, OH&S is a massive thing, particularly with a program. For us to be attractive, when we went outside the norm around Australia for these types of programs is to paint out every piece of graffiti, which is great if you've got something that's worth painting out. If it's been painted before or it's an ugly concrete wall, great. But if it's something that has wood fencing on it or some particular architecture to it, you don't really want to paint over it. You want to return it to what it originally looked like. So we put in high pressure water systems on our trailers, and every trailer has the high pressure water system. So we're removing about 22% of graffiti just using the high pressure system, and chemicals. You say chemicals and everyone goes through the roof as far as occupational health and safety. We meet all those requirements. We do all the testing. We're now considered one of the specialists in graffiti management in Victoria. That's a bit scary in itself, but that's where we've come along to. So not only do we get involved in testing products, we test anti-coatings. We put all the councils together with Vic Roads, with our railway network. So we're collaborating with them. We're working together to make sure that everyone has the same information. Border councils, getting them to work together so that those communities sitting on the border of those council areas are actually getting attended to. DHS, we're working with housing services across Victoria to clean up the houses, to make sure that people who aren't as fortunate as us to have houses are living more comfortably in the big high-rises. And on top of that, we're also working with the offenders, higher skills, giving them goals that they can achieve each day, as opposed to just going somewhere and really not getting an understanding of what they're doing. We put them through training courses as part of this, occupational health and safety, first aid level 2, and there's a whole range of things that have happened in that site. So what it means for councils is that they're saving money. We're getting labour done as far as we get something to present to government and say this is what we're achieving. We're now a BP3 target, so we're part of Treasury's targets, and I'm proud to say that we've blown that target every year since it's come out. 5 minutes, thank you. And last year we removed 331,000 square metres of graffiti, and we've hit a total over the 9 years of 2 million square metres of graffiti. That's about $54 million worth of saving to councils, to the community, and to state government stakeholders. So it's a very, very effective program. You can see some of the photos there. We've got, they're very elaborate and very nice looking photos, and I suppose we're meeting our obligations as far as our need for offenders, but we're meeting our obligations to the community to provide a safer community through our crime prevention area. We're providing something that our Minister loves: graffiti. You wouldn't believe how many times you can get him onto an event. You just have to mention that it's going to be on somewhere, and bang, their team is on it. I think this year we've had probably over 30 media events just in graffiti, and I can't count how many would we ever see on community work out there, on just general community work? Probably 3 or 4 a year if we're lucky. So it's great for my program, but what happens for the regions who are obviously delivering this for me? They've got an extra program. They get given the resources and funding to run those programs, but they also, we're putting them in touch with the partners so that we can develop other programs, because it's not limited to graffiti. We can set up other programs such as, hydrant programs, cleaning up water hydrants, also looking at fire prevention, and that's a big thing in Victoria at the moment, looking at all the fire breaks coming into that season where the big fires come. We've been very adaptable for things like fire and flood prevention, and that works for us as well. So besides the 30-odd partnerships we have with GRP, we've also opened probably another 30-odd programs inside community work, just by working together, making sure we're planned, making sure that we have measurement against what we're doing. And that's one of the challenges. We had to actually build a database for our own graffiti, keeping our own measurements. So what we decided was, why not work for the broader program and also build a database for them to collect their own measurement against any type of work they have. We just use the GRP as a means to do that with our funding, because they're not funded. And I don't know whether there's many Australian funded programs, but this is the only one Victoria has that's actually a funded program for community work. So we're very, very protective of this program and wanting to keep it. Our funding ends at the 30th of June this year, and we're in the process now of evaluating it, and the AIC have just evaluated the program and given us a big thumbs up, stating that our documentation is second to none in Australia, and it's actually now being used by other graffiti companies and other jurisdictions around Australia. So for us, that's a very nice compliment to have, not only that we've been successful in the graffiti removing, but also the compliments around our paperwork and documentation and process. I've sort of rolled through this as fast as possible, and I'm really showing you nothing about the program, and I'll give you a couple of photos. I've got a couple of seconds left. This here I find interesting, particularly with the challenge for us. Here's 3 guys who are walking across a massive gantry in Brazil. Our offenders here in Victoria or in Australia don't follow any safety process that we have to. So a lot of people say, oh, why can't you remove that graffiti? Well, the reason is because of occupational health and safety. That doesn't mean that we don't look at how we might take that challenge on and face it. And as you can see, we've got a lovely fellow down the bottom riding on the back of the train, tagging it as it goes along. Unfortunately, I think that's a Perth one actually. Is anyone from Perth? Is that a Perth train? It looks like it. And we're also working with some vandals, or previous vandals, to make sure that we're up to date on our knowledge, but also working with them through police youth, to try and curb this problem as well. So we've become a sort of a collaborator for everybody involved, from crime prevention, from ourselves in case management, community work and so on, but also working with police councils, state utilities, and a whole range of different people to try and understand this issue and get through it. Thank you very much.